Morning, guys. We're back on the tough fight. Hope you guys are doing well today. I'm doing great. Couldn't be better. No complaints. I am wearing a new shirt from toughfight.com that says, "Let's face it, your only hope is the lottery." Well, let's make that to where that's not true. So today's episode is about: are you afraid to succeed? Are you afraid of success? And I'm just going to tell you that most people are, but it's time to move forward. Don't beat yourself up if you're afraid to succeed. You can get around that fear. The biggest part is knowing that you have that fear. Obviously, we don't want to be afraid to succeed, or we won't. But recognizing it is definitely the first step. So how do you know if you're afraid of success? There's a list of symptoms, and we're not going to go through all of them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay out the list for you, though. So here's the list of the 15 or 16 things that tells you if you are afraid to succeed. So number one, we got procrastination, perfectionism, avoidance, self-destructive behavior. That'd be like drugs, alcohol, things like that. Anxiety, worrying about responsibility, feeling unworthy, imposter syndrome, trying to be someone you're not, backlash avoidance. In other words, if you don't like when people tell you something about yourself, and you avoid backlash, or even really just any confrontation. Guilt, introversion is probably a huge one. Lack of motivation, negative experiences, quitting, self-doubt, worrying about other people's opinions. So just take a moment and reflect on these symptoms and ask yourself, do any of these apply to you? If they do, the best thing to do is not sit there and say, well, that's it, I'm afraid to succeed, so I'm not even going to try. No, we still need to try. We still need to try because we can still succeed. And I would ask the question, what is success? What does success look like for you? Is your goal, is your vision of success a reality? Is it realistic for your skill set and your drive and motivation? And is it realistic for your level of energy and output? So these are questions we want to ask ourselves. The more self-aware you are, the better equipped that you will be to overcome this. And it really is something that's important to overcome. And what's awesome is you really don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a therapist to fix this thing. You just got to figure out what are you afraid of and why. Not too hard. So it's important because a lot of people don't realize that they are even afraid of success. But I think the norm is that most people are afraid of it. So people who are generally afraid of success but don't know it will often just make up excuses. It's something that we want to do, right? Like, we want to be successful. We want to go and we want to get the promotion. We want to have a decent car. We want to have a decent place to live. We want to live our lives as if they meant something to somebody. But what I see more often than not is when people don't have that, but they want it, it's always like, this job screwed me, or it's always someone or something screwed them is what it usually comes down to. Or, well, I just don't have that money, or I don't have that, that whatever to get there. You can get anywhere. You just have to really not be afraid to do so. I've seen talented, intelligent people that didn't realize that they were afraid to succeed. They'll become paralyzed with fear. So, like, for example, let's say a guy wants to start his own drywall business, and he goes out and he does, little projects here and there, but he has a full-time job. Nothing wrong with that. That's how most contractors get started, is they have a full-time job, and then at some point they work their way in to doing little side jobs, small jobs, and then they become in demand, and that's how they end up growing, and a lot of times quickly. So the problem ends up coming in when they have to make that transition from a full-time job to doing their own thing. More often than not, there's not enough money, there's not enough business to justify that transition. So an example of being paralyzed by the fear would be this: the guy keeps on doing the small jobs, and he keeps working his full-time job, and he never really makes that transition. So what's scary about this is it's scary to take that first step. I mean, I don't think most people really understand that that's a step that needs to be taken. I think most guys think that if they just go out there and do something, that all this work is going to flood them and fall in their lap. And that's true for some guys, it is. But what do you do when the work runs out? You have to keep going. And it's up to you. No one's going to do it for you, but it's up to you to make sure that that work keeps flowing. So what we're talking about here is that paralysis, right? Like, well, I'm comfortable at my job, and I know that I can pay my bills with this job, but I'm not really living the way I want to. And that's why I started my little side business, side hustle in the first place. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with side hustles. But if the side hustle just makes you enough to have steak dinner with your family every couple of weeks, I would say it's not worth it. Anyways, let's get back to the fear aspect of it. I believe that a lot of guys have this problem because at some point in their lives, maybe somebody told them they just weren't worth it or that they couldn't do it. And I have mixed feelings about when people say things like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. I think that's true. If I want to be a nuclear physicist, I can do that. But the question you have to ask yourself is this: are you cut out for it? And that's where I think the biggest fear comes from is, do we really gauge ourselves and understand our limits versus what our expectations are? So if you want to be a plumber and have your own plumbing company, and you go work for a plumber for 10 years and you learn the ins and outs of the job, but then you go out and try to start your own plumbing company and then you fail at it, I would ask the question, did you really gauge yourself before you did it? Did you know that you need a certain mental capacity to run a business? Because running a business and doing the work are not the same thing. They're two totally different things. And I had to learn that the hard way. So we'll have these people in our lives, like our dads or our moms, and they'll say, let's say you go to your dad and you say, hey, you know what? I want to be a pilot. And your dad says, son, you can't be a pilot. You're not smart enough, or, whatever the thing may be. I know my dad was not incredibly supportive of anything I wanted to do with my life as a child. And even today, I feel like I'm the landscape guy, and I've done pretty well for myself compared to my siblings. Not to say my siblings haven't done well. They've done great. But, my wife gets to stay home, raise our kids, cooks and cleans the house, and she couldn't be happier, I think. But but the point is, I've afforded my family a great lifestyle and a great life. But I was told my whole life that I couldn't do it. So when I started my company in 2004, it took me probably a lot longer than a lot of other people would, because I'd never really had that full confidence in myself. So I had to learn as I went on how to make things work and happen. I didn't have anyone to teach me anything as a kid. All I was taught as a kid was what was wrong with me. So that can create that fear in you of success, right? Like, you have the desire to do something, but since you don't think you can, you never really go all the way. That's fear holding you back. So we don't want to be afraid to succeed. And I really think that the fear of success really means a fear of change. So if you spend your whole life living a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to do things differently, that's change. And what I think a lot of guys don't realize is when they have that full-time job and they're paying their bills, I think one of the problems that people really run into is, they're doing the side jobs and it's like, I don't really want to change. I just want it to be there for me. Like I can just walk into it. And that's the problem. The problem is that to be successful in what it is that you want to do, you have to step out of your comfort zone and be pretty darn uncomfortable. And you may even go backwards quite a bit. I know so many guys. I'm going to talk about my friend real quick. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to even mention what he does for a living. But I'll just say this. He was running a company that he worked his way up in. He worked there for about I don't know, 15, 20 years. And he was there pretty much since the start. And he worked his way up into a position where he was the general manager of the company. He was the face of the company. He was the operation of the company. Like, he did everything. He might as well have been the owner. And the last few years that he worked at this company, he started to think that, like, for the amount of money that goes through the place, that he should be making that money. Hey, I understand that mentality. That's kind of how I ended up where I did. But what I don't think he was prepared for was the mental capacity required to have the weight of a business on your shoulders. It's heavy. I mean, it is a heavy, heavy burden. He knew how to do everything. He's the reason why the company probably multiplied times 5 or even 10 because of his leadership. The owner just lived in another state and just asked for reports every week and would, call, do coaching and call and get angry when there was a problem, those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, this man was the reason why this company grew to what it did. Now, do I think that he is capable of building his own company to the point that he built the other company? I do. I think we're all capable of that. But here's the real question. Does he have the emotional capacity to do it? So emotional capacity is important. And it's important because when the weight of the business starts to crush you, or we don't even have to say that it's like a business, right? It could just be your promotion at your job or whatever it may be, right? But when it starts to crush you, you have to decide if you're going to collapse under that weight or keep standing. A lot of guys keep standing, but to the point of complete mental and physical exhaustion and a breakdown. You don't want to get to that point. It's a lonely road, but you have to understand what your capacity is before you do it. And that can be really hard to do. So how do we find that out? What you want to do is you want to find people who are where you want to be. And you want to just ask them, like, maybe not so much intentionally, but you want to get to know them and you want to find out, like, hey, how do you deal with these things? Like, what's the bad part about this job? What's the bad part about owning this business? Those are the things you want to ask. What does everybody say? Like, well, how much money can I make? Well, that's great. We all want to make more money. But if you don't understand the cost involved, the consequence of your actions of wanting to level up, then you're not doing yourself any favors. So it's important to know what you're getting into before you do it. And have the mindset that it might be harder than you think. Most guys look at what I do and what they see is they see me driving around in a truck all day and they see me sitting in my chair all day in my office at my computer and they think, well, man, Mike doesn't really do anything all day. I can do his job. I can do nothing all day and get paid millions of dollars and have everything I want. What they don't see is how much money we really don't make. They see my stuff that I've accumulated over 30, 40 years of my life. But what they don't see is the blood, the sweat, and the tears that I went through to get to where I'm at. What they don't see is all the fights that I've had with my wife about how much time I don't spend with her and my kids. These are all things that nobody really thinks about. So again, if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then moving up in the world may not be for you. And that fear of success may be your body saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we can't do this. But we can. We just have to decide how bad we really want to. So success really requires long-term dedication. You're not going to go out and just all of a sudden, be this fancy guy that has all the stuff that you wanted. I mean, having a nice lifestyle, it takes time. It really does. And even when you get there, it may not be what you think it is. You might be living well, or seemingly so, but you also might be broke. So if everything you do is based on what your credit limit is, you're probably at some point, you're going to crash and burn, more than likely. But if you find that you really want to succeed in life, but it always seems like your dreams are just too far away, like, man, they're just out of reach. I just can't reach it. I can't grab it. Then you might want to just dumb down your dream just a little. Dream just a little smaller and just say to yourself, hey, maybe, yeah, these are things that I want. But for right now, I want the McLaren, I want the big house. But for right now, I'll take a Volvo or, a Honda Civic. I mean, Honda's come a long way. I'll take a decent vehicle. I'll take a decent house. I'll buy the 1,600 square foot house with the 2-car garage and 3 bedrooms, modest average home. I'll hold off on the mansion. That's okay. Get somewhere though. That will also help you break your fear of success. So dreaming too big, in my opinion, is one of the biggest mistakes people make because it puts a fear in you. That's a big cause for paralysis, because when you see you're not getting the big ticket items, a lot of people quit. And that quitting is a symptom, right? So we don't want to quit, but that's what makes us quit is when we don't see a result of any kind. And that's because our expectations are too high. Sure, you want to get here, right? But you got to go here, 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 and here first. You can't just go straight up to this. Even guys that win the lottery don't get to really do that. Guys that win the lottery that don't understand going in the levels, a lot of them end up worse off than they were before they won the lottery. So, whatever job you do, show up every day. Be the guy who goes into the job and says, I'm going to make this place money and we're going to be efficient. We're going to grow this company and I'm going to be an integral asset to this company that they're going to want me here. So with any luck, you'll at least learn how to run a business or get to the point where you're in a position where you actually can do well for yourself. But it takes time. And growth happens with patience and persistence. I know it's easier said than done, but you have to get over your fears. But I think the best way to do it, identify what your fears are. And I'm going to go back to that list real quick because I feel like there's one that I really wanted to talk about. Perfectionism is a killer. So perfectionism, here's the problem with it. You try to do everything perfectly. And what happens when you do this is that there's no such thing as perfection. You find that out the hard way. You don't realize it until the end when you didn't succeed that, this was never going to be perfect. Just get it done. Yeah, try to do it the best you can. Always put the best you can into it. But if you're waiting for the perfect time and have the perfect tax return or the perfect paycheck or whatever to start making your dreams come true, you'll never start. You'll never start. If you're always waiting for the stars to align perfectly for you, you'll never get going. You'll never get your feet wet. You'll never know what it's like to fail. And I have news for you. Failure, I know this doesn't sound stupid, but failure is a huge part of success. Huge part. It's someone who needs to succeed, whether it's getting a promotion, starting a business, or whatever. You need to know what did and didn't work to get you to those steps that you took. And you have to be willing to fail. You have to. So at the end of the day, let's stop being afraid of success. Let's start taking on our fears directly. Let's take them head on. What are they? How do we get over them? Stop obsessing about certain things. Dream a little smaller. You can have a big dream in the background running, but dream smaller on your way there. Understand that there are steps to take to get to where you want to go. So let's go out there and let's succeed at what we do. Not just for us, but for the world. And let's show the people who said we couldn't do it that we can. And there's one more thing that I have to share with you guys. Just one more thing. Don't be the guy that has to wear this shirt. Don't even buy one. Unless you want to just, walk around, saying something funny. Don't buy this shirt because that's the way you feel about yourself. Life is tough, guys. Fight back.